And welcome to another edition of Civic Affairs, hosted by myself, Alex Barr, and my co-anchor, our correspondent for City Hall, Andy Martins. Andy, how you doing today?
Hey, great, Alex. Great to be back with you.
Always great to be live on a Monday. Now, we've got an exclusive interview to start off because we got him just a little bit before Luann got him for the news tomorrow. Candidate for Ward 1, Don Mitchell. Don, how you doing?
Very good, Alex.
Awesome.
And Andy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. It means a lot to us. So, first off, what if these people watching right now aren't familiar with yourself? Do you want to give us a little bit about your background and why exactly you are running for City Council?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, first of all, my background is I've been in business in Sault Ste. Marie for the last 40 years. I've been in sales, I've been in management, I've been in human resource management. I have been on a number of committees, boards, organizations, business organizations. I've been on the EDC. I went on to be its president for a few years. I've been in the Chamber of Commerce. I went on to be its president for a few years. I was on the university board for 9 years, thankfully during the time that we took it from a college to a university, which was very special. I've been on the St. Lawrence Seaways Trade Mission to China, representing Canada and the city. I organized a trade mission for Mayor John Rosewell to go back to China for Sault Ste. Marie. I have been the chair of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee here in Sault Ste. Marie for the last 12 years. I think that gives you an idea of some of the things I've done, Alex.
All right, I'm sure the list goes on and on.
No, I could, you know, we're not going to say anything more than that, but why am I running for council? That's pretty simple, okay? I feel it's time for a direction change. I think that we need to take action. I'm sick and tired of seeing studies and consultations. It is time to get on and move this city forward. Stop studying it. We know the answers. We know where we have to go. We need to get reductions in taxes, and we have to cut the red tape, which is hampering and killing business from expanding and growing.
I mean, he said it himself, quite simple. Andy, your follow-up to that.
You spelled it out.
Right?
I've been following civic politics for 28 years in this community, and Don, you could have said it a better way. You and I talked about this before our live broadcast. Why is it so important to have a business background going forward?
Again, that's a fairly straightforward, fairly simple question to answer. First of all, the city is a corporation in itself. It's a business. Right. It's one of our largest employers in Sault Ste. Marie. I don't see how you as an individual or myself can help direct a community's business without having business knowledge. Do you think that somebody like Tenaris, Tubes, would sit down and say, look, we're going to take advice from somebody that hasn't been through the business community, knows what has to be there? Right. I think they're going to say, hey, no, we need expertise. We need people with knowledge of what should be done and what can't be done. And I think the city is the same thing. And therefore, I think it's very important to have a strong business background to help this city move into its next phase.
Exactly, and that's why we look at a mayor such as John Rosewell. He had his own business. He was an engineer. He understood what companies in the city wanted.
Yes, and there's a prime example. You know, we can take any of the professionals and say, hey, they are professionals and they're very good in their profession, but that doesn't make them a business person. That's a different category itself. That's why the university here in Sault Ste. Marie has got one of the leading business courses. It's a business course. It teaches how to run business. How do you develop business? How do you move it on? Okay? So it's a separate, it doesn't teach you to be a doctor, it doesn't teach you to be a lawyer, it teaches you how to run a business.
Now our next question, you did say it was kind of like handing you a stick of dynamite before the show, but the SR creditor situation, when it comes to new council, how might that affect the new council members?
Well, let's start with an explanation. Okay. I think that this city truly, and a lot of the population, doesn't understand what the creditors protection, or what is CCAA. We hear it all the time, CCAA. Okay, very simply, it's Companies Creditors, Arrangement Act. It is a federal act set up by the federal government, but monitored by the courts. And what's happened here in Sault Ste. Marie, Normally, the court will appoint an independent restructuring officer to handle that company through the transition and hopefully getting it to a survival mode. But it's an independent. It's somebody who wasn't there before. In this particular case, the court saw fit to utilize the same management that helped it get into the situation it is in to continue to run the company. Same old, okay? And what they've done is appointed an admonitor to monitor the situation, which is a private company being paid tens of thousands of dollars, an advisor being paid the same. Matter of fact, these companies in the last 2.5 years have made into the millions of dollars acting in this capacity. Nice job. Why should you end it? Okay, that's a point.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and who became the owners? When did this transfer and what happened? In November 2014, SR Steel Algoma was in trouble. So SR Steel applied to enter into CCAA. When that was granted in November 2015, very clearly people have to understand SR Global, the SR company itself, ceased to be the owners of the steel plant. Ceased, complete. They didn't get a penny further. It was over. Who is the owners and who was the owners starting at that time? What they call the dip lenders. Who is a dip lender? Okay, you hear that term. The dip lender is debtor in possession. Okay? They're the guys that put the money up so the company, when it was in financial difficulty in November through to March of November 2015 through to March 2016, they put the money up so they could continue to meet the payroll, meet the demands upon the company, and they guaranteed that money. Now, mind you, the interest rate was significant, okay, but they were taking a risk. So that's great. That's who was, and until this point, still is the owner. What's happened in March 2016, the steel plant started to turn the corner. Steel prices came from here to here and have slowly risen since then. What's happened? The company has made, now understand this, hundreds of millions of dollars profit.
Now, Don,
That's hundreds of millions.
I'm sorry I got to do this. Don't make me think I'm a bad guy here. But we are going to throw it to break. So I'll let you finish your thoughts right after a quick message from our sponsors. And welcome back to Civic Affairs. Now, before I so rudely interrupted our friend here, Don, were there any last thoughts you had on the SR creditor situation before we moved on? Because I'll let you finish up your thoughts.
Last thoughts are continuing thoughts, okay? I stopped at saying in March 2016 the company started to make a profit. It has made a profit every month since then up until today, okay? The company has shown a profits in excess of, well, we'll just say hundreds of millions of dollars in profits, okay? My question is, at that particular point, why did the mayor and council make a deal to reduce taxes for SR Steel, okay, or in this case, excuse me, I got to say Algoma Steel, which it was, okay?
Yes.
Why would they reduce the taxes and help them, but at the same time, within a month or two, they increased the industrial taxes to 40 other industrial businesses by 5.6% per year for the next 10 years. These are the same industrial companies that are shown, or many of them are shown on the unsecured creditors, where the mayor and council have said, this is terrible, it's too bad, but it happens. Yeah, it happens, but it doesn't happen very often that a council and mayor add to their woes by increasing significantly their tax base. The other thing that's curious about this is the court did allow at the beginning, because the company was in debt up until March 6, 2016, they allowed the company not to pay into the pension fund. So it hasn't paid into the pension funds for its employees for this period of time. That's adding up to millions of dollars, which they are now seeking concessions from the Ontario government to help them with the situation. Well, those concessions are yours and mine as taxpayers. They're costing us a fortune. And yet a company that's made hundreds of millions of dollars is taking that money, okay, and taking it away. And I said at the beginning, this isn't SR Global that's getting this money. You know who the dip lenders are? They're New York-based financial companies. They're New York companies. They're finance companies. They aren't steel companies. They're lenders. They know the finance business, and they got a good one, okay? And this is not their first rodeo. They've done this before. So they haven't been held accountable. I want to say one thing, though. I think we have to congratulate both unions, because the union leaders did a heck of a job in negotiating for their members, given what they knew was happening and what was being asked. They were being asked for concessions. How do you ask for concessions? At least the union had the strength to stand up to that and say, hey, thank you. And I'm a businessman saying, way to go, unions. Right. Okay, there's a real oxymoron, okay? But, you know, they have to be congratulated. They did what they had to protect their members. But again, remember, there's still 3,000 working members. There's 6,000 to maybe 8,000. I'm not sure the figure, it's somewhere between there. Pensioners, that something has to be done. And they passed the buck while making hundreds of millions of dollars, and nobody's really stood up for them. The unions have tried, but the city hasn't stood up for them. So what would I do? I'd make it known openly, okay, that I want to see a fair settlement. I would have loved to have seen other suitors. I believe there were other suitors that were out there that would have taken and given us a better deal. I was told openly by the mayor to don't take sides, okay? But I think he has, and I think the council has.
This guy does his research.
Well, he does.
We don't get no slouches here on Civic Affairs, that's for sure.
He knows it well. Don, I wanted to combine a couple things for the next question.
Sure.
You bring it rightly so, there's problems. There'll be also problems for the next council because the courts have decided that the $25 million owed to suppliers will be sort of like wiped out. These businesses will be left without. And also, council needs to get the industrial tax rate down. The current, how do we go about doing that?
Andy, first of all, I'm not sure, I hear your comment, the courts have decided to wipe away the $25,000.
Is that not?
I'm not sure that court has made
million.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure that the courts have made that decision.
Right.
That's the ask, and that's the intention of the dip lenders, okay? That's the intention of the New York financial companies who control the destiny of Sault Ste. Marie. We read in the paper that the company, Algoma, is being sold. I think we all read it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. These people can't operate a steel plant under their financial company, so there's been formed a numbered company out of British Columbia. They've got the same pair of pants on. They're just changing from the right pocket to the left pocket. I mean, it's you know.
Smoke and mirrors kind of thing.
Hide the pee, hide the money.
Right. Well, like I said earlier, we got an educated man on Civic Affairs, but there's going to be more of Don Mitchell on the news tomorrow with Luann. So stay tuned with ONNtv to watch that, but also stay tuned on TV and catch some more Civic Affairs right after this.
Welcome back to another live edition of Civic Affairs. Andy Martins with Alex Parr, and we now have our next guest, Winona Hutchinson, candidate for councillor in Ward 3. Welcome, Winona.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're running in a tough ward as an unknown, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so the voters in Ward 3 have a better understanding of who you are. For example, you're not originally from Sault Ste. Marie, like I am not, and you're not. So why don't you tell us a little about it?
Okay, yeah, you're right. I am not from Sault Ste. Marie originally. I was born in Toronto, in Rexdale, and it's a pretty bad neighborhood, and I grew up poor. So, you know, working very hard to get through grade school and high school, I decided to become a child and youth worker. So what I did is I actually worked with behavioral and special needs children in Toronto. So namely was the boys' home. And I was a coordinator there, and I was responsible for ensuring 5 group homes functioned under the licensing requirements that were set down by the ministry. And from there, I went on to work in accounting for 10 years as an international tax practitioner, and I moved up to the Soo in 1999.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What prompted the move, actually, out of curiosity?
Well, to be honest, I come from a same-sex household.
Okay.
So one of my moms was not well, so I moved back here after the split of my first marriage. And so myself and my 2 children moved up here in 1999, and as a single mom, and
Happily
made it
ever
work.
after?
Happily ever
Yes,
after. Met
okay.
my husband, yes.
So, Winona, what sort of things do you have your hand in the community? I know we here like to think that you've had quite a sizable impact.
Well, actually, my community work has actually started before I even got here. So no matter what I did, I was very much active in the community with the young folk, with the youth of our whatever organization I was working in. I grew up in Army cadets, so as a cadet. And I started off as Navy League and Army cadets, and that gave me a sense of citizenship that probably most people didn't get to experience at a very young age. So it prompted me to give back. So when I moved up here in '99, I was a civilian instructor for the local Army Cadet Corps. So I got to do that, which was fun. I've also volunteered for the Special Olympics. I was a referee for their swim meet a couple of years ago. What else have I done? Oh yeah, I'm like, never fails, my hands are in there. I currently sit on the Family Residence Council for Mapleview Nursing Home because my dad said, hey, I need a voice in here, get it up there. So that's what I'm doing.
Yes, I am. My wife is a PSW. I know the nursing homes always need a voice. I just wanted to pick up on that. What was it about social work that kind of you can relate to politics? What encouraged you to get involved? Is it the involvement in making it better for people?
I think for me, we need to take ownership in our own lives.
Right.
And growing up the way I did, being bullied and growing up very poor, I know what it was like to be marginalized, I guess is the word, the TAC word for it nowadays.
Right.
You know, and forgotten and ignored. And I struggled and I worked very hard to get out of that situation. I've been working since I was 16. I've had 3 jobs just to get myself through college. You know what I mean? And then when I graduated, it paid off because I had a fairly good job when I graduated from college. So, you know, in that part of it, it was always looking towards how do I make myself better and my community. Because we get forgotten. If you grow up the way I did, you're automatically slammed into a pigeonhole. And we're not like that. We're adventurous people and we want the same. And so I've been an advocate for people since I was 18.
Just a quick follow-up. I can see what I think with social work and politics, you want to make the community more balanced so the forgotten people have a say as well. Well, I think, yeah, and what you're saying is true, but I think it's more important, it's an equal opportunity. Right.
You know what I mean? Because not everyone can be given the same. We know that. Sameness does not equal, you know, being equal. It doesn't. What I would love to see is an equal opportunity, because that gives people pride in how they react to an opportunity given. That's their choice. If they take it, run with it, and make it a success, or it's their choice if they don't.
Right. And what I would love to see is more of Winona on Civic Affairs right after this break. Thank you for sticking with Civic Affairs. Now, one question I feel like is one of the most important tasks, any of the candidates, is what actually sparked you to want to run for councillor? What was it that you're like, you know what, it's time to take action, I feel like I have to do this myself?
Well, actually I have 2 triggers. So, being honest, one of them is being a resident of Ward 3, and I have been a resident for Ward 3 for a while, is not getting the level of representation that I felt I deserved and what I was entitled to. So when I, as a resident, have issues and not getting fed the feedback needed from our current council, then I'm like, well, wait a second here. I could do a better job. I live in the ward, I talk to the ward, you know what I mean? Like, I think I could do a better job. And then the second trigger for me was our opioid issues in the city. Now, coming from social services, working with teenage prostitutes down in Toronto and the drug addictions and things like that, this kind of hits me hard because I don't feel that our current council has given enough lobbying to the provincial government to get the necessary resources here. So, for example, we don't have a treatment center in the Soo. We have detox, 100%. So we help the addiction, the addict, help detox them from whatever that drug that their choice is. We're not really giving them the tools to be a successful
Rehabilitation, yeah, exactly.
So if we don't give those resources, all we're doing is we're creating that environment for them to go and
go right back into, right? Because you can clear them of that, but if you don't give them the tools to keep advancing in their life, it's a vicious cycle, right?
Absolutely. And until the city actually sees that, and I think the W5 expose that they did for us, as horrible as it was, I think it was very negative. It may have been the kick in the pants that this city needs to get our community healthy again, and we're not. So that was a bigger trigger for me to get involved. And I've always believed, since I'll still remember, Ian Hart was my sergeant at the time, and he said to me when I was in cadets, you see a need, you fill a need. Well, I see a need. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to fill that need by making sure that this actually gets done. So when I was talking to my friends, and they said, you know, what do you think? They're like, well, if there's anyone who's more tenacious than you, they have yet to meet them. So.
Yeah, I think you're right, Winona. We were caught flat-footed with the W5. Well, you've definitely jumped in with both feet, calling attention to the current council and the open letter and the motions and resolutions. And Mr. Shoemaker, how would you minimize this from happening again with city staff if you were elected councillor?
Well, for me, part of the process is not holding ourselves accountable. So as a council member, if you cannot hold yourself accountable for the number of motions that you put forward and making sure that they're completed, then you can't necessarily have someone else hold you accountable.
Right.
So for him to have said at the time, you know, we would be looking like we were making the city micromanagers. That's not necessarily a micromanaging task. Holding someone accountable is not micromanaging. It's literally putting a deadline in place so that way everybody knows when it's supposed to come to completion. And I think as a resident of Ward 3, when my representative puts through so many motions, I want to see them get carried through, not just rolled over into another big event or another canopy or another committee. I want a timeline. Like, motions have a value when they're passed, and they need to be dealt with a value. And you can't put a value to something unless there's a deadline. Like, Alex, you worked for me, and
that I did.
Every day we went to work is like, this is the goal, and this is what we need to accomplish. And you need to have those difficult conversations with yourself and with your colleagues. And if our council can't hold each other accountable, then they're not comfortable holding those difficult conversations. You need to relook at that. Who's sitting in that chair?
Well, speaking of difficult conversations, if you want to go to our YouTube channel, we have a bit of Winona on there speaking with, well, we'll just say another candidate from Ward 3 right now. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have with Winona today. We're going to send it to a quick break and have another guest for you right after this.
Thanks for sticking with us on Civic Affairs. Andy Martins and Alex Barr live from the Superior Media Studios. And our next guest is a good friend, John Bruno, who's a candidate for councillor in Ward 3. John, tell us your background and why you're running for council in Ward 3.
Thank you for the opportunity to come this evening, and I really enjoy that you have given me. Basically, I'd like to start off, I've been an educator for many, many years. I started as a teacher. I lived in the West End, grew up, child of immigrant family, and things were tough as we were growing up. Went to school, education was stressed immensely, so that's what we would continue to do, and go to school, became a teacher, and throughout my career paid attention to my career and became a principal and superintendent, and certainly enjoyed every minute of the children were fantastic, and my passion for children and the community were immense at that point. I also was involved a little bit in politics way back, and so my passion never died. It just kind of put it aside, and I think with my retirement coming, in June 30th, I said, here's my opportunity, because the next election was in October. And certainly, I'm a firm believer, if you need some change in the community or any time, you need to get involved, and I think that's what I've done all my life. Also, I worked at the steel plant as I was going through. In '82, things were pretty rough in the city as they are, throughout the last 20 years. I worked at Algoma Steel in No. 2 shop in the Mull Yard. People like Jim Marinelli and Art Galazzi and all of those people really helped me as a young man to get some summer jobs and work. And you know what? They were good days, because it gave me the opportunity to go to school. It made me earn some money during the summertime, because things were rough. And going through all of those stages in life, you build a lot of character. You build a lot of how do you call it? You get to meet people, and you get to see their passion. And Sault Ste. Marie's always been what I've loved, because Sault Ste. Marie has afforded me a very good life, and I want to give back now. Now that I'm got some time, I want to give back, because they've been so good to me, and we live in a fantastic city, and you know what? We have to tell people that we live in a fantastic city, and we want to make it better, and I think we can make it better, and I really look forward to that next step.
I mean, the first thing that you've done after announcing your retirement is just trying to get another job. So I think that speaks volumes about his passion, like he's saying here. So, and a lot of people are quick to judge the last 4 years of council and the mayor and the things that they've done. Do you have a quick evaluation you'd like to give on the last 4 years and how things have moved along?
Okay, I will have a little bit of fun now, because as an educator, we give out report cards. So
Right.
you know what?
Playing the role of opposition. Yeah.
Absolutely. If I was to score them, we need improvement. There is a slot in the report cards that says needs improvement. And it does need improvement, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be running. And you know what? I would be happy with the people that would be running. But I think I can give something to the community. And what are some of those things that need improvement? Well, number one, I want to give back, as I mentioned to you in my background. Number two, taxes. Taxes are through the roof everywhere, and everybody that I talk to, why do we have to pay so much? And those things are there. Having been at the board, managed a $70 million, not myself, but worked with it as a superintendent. So we have to look at that with even more of a fine-tooth comb, so that we can see what are some of those areas. We have to look at other cities too, to see what best practices there are. To see, I went on a little trip just a couple of weeks ago to Petoskey, Charlevoix area, small cities, but the people and the economy were just booming there as well. What are some of those things that are happening there that we could take notice? Yes, we've been doing lots of resolutions, but sometimes we even curtail some of those resolutions by saying, we don't want to hear about certain things, or we don't want to talk about certain things. Again, we're here. We have to be transparent. We have to talk about those things. And the more ideas that are put on the table, the more we have to play with. When I say play with, the more we can entertain to see what we can do that would help our city and our economy.
Right. And talking is going to be the most important part, like you said. So I hope you're ready to do some more after a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're live on ONNtv. Alex Barr, Andy Martins, the best in local television, where we'll have all candidates running for mayor and council on this show between now and October 22nd. Welcome back, John Bruno. You talked before the break that change is needed. Your experience as an educator, how can you compare education and politics? And given that, what will your message be at the door in Ward 3 in a general basis? You don't want to give away your platform, but I think as an educator, you can make it better in politics. What are some of the things that you will be able to tell the voters in Ward 3?
One of the main things in education and politics, and you know what, we're always looking at best practices from an education perspective. We always go down to professional development and certainly look at different things and keep up to date, because you know, teaching and politics, there's always things going on. As you can see, our world of tweeting, politics in the United States and Canada, it's growing and growing. So you know, that comparison between education and politics is alive and well. Going door to door, my message is going to be about taxes, and certainly one of the things that I want to talk about is our community businesses. Just something with SR, we've talked about taxes, and you know, I'm really worried. I haven't heard there was a lot of businesses that didn't get paid through that whole process of CCAA recovery, and you know, again, we just don't know very much to kind of comment on that. And if we're trying to bring down our taxes, we need to know how our major employer paid for theirs or didn't pay for them, and we need to start somewhere and look into that. Also, the resolutions, as I mentioned to you before, there's 444 cities, and correct me if I'm wrong there, but that we can take a look at. And just like I used to go to Toronto and Sudbury and all the where the PD was, we should be going to, again, to different cities and seeing some of those things that are happening in those cities. And there's forums for that as well, PD forums that can help us get there. Also, we cut $400,000 from the EDC. And you know what? We're talking about jobs and jobs and jobs. So again, we need to look at why that happened. You know, how can we make that better, and how can we deploy that money so that we can make a difference in Sault Ste. Marie? Again, our city is the best city to live in, but we need our young people. Part of my motivation is that those young people that I saw grow up in education come back to Sault Ste. Marie, because there comes a vibrancy that comes with that, and having our children leave home. Too many times I've heard parents say, well, I'm going to Toronto, my kids are in Toronto and they're working hard, and you know, they got great opportunity, but I would like to have them home once in a while too. So you can see that they're a little disappointed that some of them had to leave, and if we can make our city attractive so that they can come back with good paying jobs and all of those kinds of things, then we need to go there.
And speaking on jobs, what do you think that the mayor or council can do going forward to kind of retain jobs here, or to just better the conditions for employment?
Well, I think we have to start attracting some businesses here. I think they're trying, and I know that they have been looking at some just recently. Again, sometimes I feel that it's in the detail that we need to kind of look at, you know, continuing the progress and going after them. If there's something that I learned, is that if you want something, you have to go for it. You can't wait. You can't sit back and saying, let's wait for the phone call to come in. You got to be at their door. I've seen some educators do that. I mean, they fire up to Queen's Park and they just go knock on doors, and you know what? I need to talk to you. We have a situation and we need to talk. Again, that's just a parallel, but we need to put forth. And I think with my experience, my leadership and the role that I've created over my years, I think I have that in me to kind of move forward in that direction so that we can open some doors. And again, it's hard slugging. It's nothing, you know, firm and committed that somebody does this and you get this. But we have to continue to sell our community.
You made some great points, John. You can't really do too much if your tax rates are highest in the province, and that kind of chokes businesses. How would Sault Ste. Marie look at, with John Bruno as councillor 4 years from now? How can you envision that we would look compared to what we are today?
Well, I think, again, I'll speak about my experience, and how will I look there? I will question. I want transparency and all the things that were there. I also, on my flyer, put down experience, leadership, and integrity. I think we need to have that transparency so that our community and the citizens that I'm going to work for are satisfied with some of the answers that they receive. And being transparent is the number one thing. In all of my experience, we can't have a small group of people always moving things forward. Everybody has to be part of that. And I think we need our citizens have to have input into everything that we do, because if we don't, then it becomes very short-sighted and very short-term, some of the solutions that we come up to. And again, we want short-term and long-term solutions.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time, and I'm sure you're going to be in these studios many, many times before that October 22nd. And if you're giving out handshakes, I'm going to take one too. So, John, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for staying tuned, but don't go anywhere. We have one more guest for you. And welcome back once again to another live installment of Civic Affairs, hosted by myself, Alex Parr, and my co-anchor here, Andy Martins, as always. So now we're joined in studio by candidate for Ward 5, my ward, Matt Scott. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me.
And I guess you're talking right to the people you're trying to represent here.
Exactly.
So
Pressure's on.
Tell me then a little bit about your background. What do you want me as a Ward 5 resident to know?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie. I graduated from Algoma University with a Bachelor's of Business Administration. I work at the hospital in in decision support as a data analyst. And I actually live in Ward 5, used to be Ward 6. I've lived there for 30 years and still live there with my wife and my dog.
Happily, I can only assume?
Of course.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks for coming in, Matt. And tell us a little bit about why you're running for councillor now. What kind of
Sure.
pinned your interest to do it now in this election this year?
Absolutely. So I've wanted to do it for a while now. 4 years ago, I hummed and hawed, and then the time passed. My grandfather actually was a Ward 6 alderman in 1964, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's always been an interest of mine, and I feel like right now, more than ever, I'm seeing a lot of my friends move out of town.
Right.
There's not enough to do. There's no jobs. They love the city. They'd stay if they could, but they can't. So they're all moving down south. Mm-hmm. And what I would like to do is I would like to show the people of Ward 5 that I've got drive. I'm young. I'm going to do what I can to make sure that the city stops that from happening. So people want to and will stay here and continue to hope that the economy will recover, and jobs are a big thing, right? And as well as, like I live in Ward 5, as I said, and I just like that end of the town, so I kind of want to bring something to it, and you can see it, you live there, so you know how it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just kind of keep the ward great.
And when you come knocking on my door,
absolutely,
what kind of things are you going to be telling me and my family? What's your message going to be?
My message is going to be that I'm young, I'm eager, I've got fresh ideas, I'm different than what we're used to. I'm going to fight for what people in the ward want. I'm going to be a voice for the people. So right now, I feel like maybe you don't have a voice, right? So have you ever tried? It's tough. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be responsive. I'm going to be there for you. If you have a problem, call me. I'm going to be available always. And that's what I want. I want to show that I'm willing to do the work.
And do you think living in the actual ward that you're running in plays in your favor? I can only assume as such.
It could, probably, yeah, because I'm familiar, have family there, I know a lot of people, friends and stuff, and it helps that I'm familiar with the area. So I know what people are kind of, the demographic, what their interests are.
Right, the things that you hear a little bit too much that you know you kind of have to hop on.
Yeah, things like which roads aren't being repaired, or
Yes.
which roads are being plowed or not plowed. You hear that, like those are just two quick examples, but yeah, you definitely hear that living right in the ward.
Sometimes you think when you live out there, if it ain't airport road and it ain't second line, it ain't getting touched sometimes.
Yep, I know the feeling.
Well, you bring up some good points, and there's other young people running, and let's face it, you're only one vote on council, but together with some other young people getting elected, you can find common ground and bring motions and resolutions forward. So given that, what's going to be your message in Ward 5? Why should they vote for you?
Yeah, of course. Like I said, right, I'm young, I'm eager, I'm going to have different ideas. So working together, hopefully with some more young councillors, we can bring a little bit of youth to the council and to the city with some different ideas, things that haven't been tried before. I'm not going to be the councillor who's there for a year and then just gives up or falls back into the status quo. I'm going to be the councillor that's constantly listening, constantly active, always doing something, always on the move, not making a lot of motions that don't get followed through, but doing ones that are very important and different for the city.
Well, the key is to find that common ground and then make sure that you're going to get the 7 votes, or it'll be less than that now with 10 councillors in the new ward and doing your homework.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Andy, I'll let you pick away at his brain and a little bit more right after a quick break. Do you think they have enough time to miss us after that short break?
We're back with our final segment. I'll tell you, it's flying pretty quickly. Matt Scott's back with us. And Matt, what's your strategy to unseat an incumbent? Because you've got 2 of them, although one is not an incumbent, is a Ward 5 current incumbent, not a new guy to the ward, the new setup. How do you unseat that as a new guy? I've been there. I was on the ballot for 15 years. How do you unseat an incumbent?
This is a little bit of a tricky question. It's one that I kind of want to play close to my chest here, maybe not give too much away.
Well, generality, yeah, for sure.
But I think, like I've said before, right, it's being a little bit different than what we've had. Like you mentioned, there are 2 incumbents per se in the ward. And I think a lot of people in the city, and specifically in Ward 5, do want some change. They want some differences made. So I think that's going to be one of my big focuses.
Well, where I was going with this question is that the problem is people in the city are used to voting the same people back.
True.
I was on the ballot for 15 years. I wasn't able to do it. So given that, you've got to have some extraordinary ideas.
I think, without giving too much away again, I think the key is to really get to the people, get to the doors, talk to everybody, put myself out there, let people know what I'm about, get their buy-in, and go from there. I think that's...
Got to get Alex's vote, too.
Right.
Absolutely. We'll talk after.
Kudos for Andy here, too, for trying to poke and get that exclusive take at Matt Scott here. So, speaking of how people usually will vote for the same person, well, not always, but it seems as though if you have a seat, you can pretty much say you've got it for a while. Would you almost put that to it being a popularity contest, where if they know the name, they feel like that's the comfortable vote and that's who they're going to stick with?
Personally, I don't find elections to be a popularity contest, but I can see where that could be derived, given what's happened locally, provincially, federally, even internationally. We do know that people tend to vote for a name, not necessarily for an idea. But I think part of that is you have to kind of market yourself as the name to the idea. So if you pitch yourself, you're saying this is what you're about, you're telling the people, that's getting your name out there. That's pretty much it, yeah.
Right. And before we wrap up the show, you can always check out a little bit more of Matt on our YouTube channel, Sue Online, where you had a sit-down interview with Riley. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. For me, for Andy, for all our guests, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Civic Affairs.